Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster, and I want to thank you for joining me for another Age Reforged replay battle. Today we have one of the larger 4v4 battles from our official Reforged Winter Tournament. Yes, indeed, it has started, and if you guys are interested in getting more or less the full coverage, I think for the most part we'll just be showing the closer games rather than the ones that are a total blowout for either side. Then you guys can check out UMAD Commander's channel. If you know about me, you probably also know about him. Gundorian Smith as well, and Lucky Hussar. I'm going to have all the links to their various channels down in the description for your convenience. But in any case, let's take a look at some of the army comps here, and then we can get into this replay itself. But I suppose before we do that, let's take a quick little overview of the map here. This is actually a map that I made myself especially for the tournament, and it is called the Winter Hamlet. And it's pretty damned nice, if I do say so myself. There's a lot of terrain, as I tend to like my maps to have varied terrain so that we can keep things replayable and interesting. So there's a lot of forest and some hidden villages and settlements and things like that surround this central little civilized hamlet. And this is where a lot of the fighting is going to take place today. So without any further ado, let's get into the army comps, then we can jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is the Forces of Isengard, and that is going to be commanded by yours truly. I've brought, I believe, one unit of War Grinders, one unit of Champions of the White Hand, just to fill out my cavalry line in the event that I need them. I've also got some Uruk-hai archers to the tune of about 3 units of Uruk-hai archers. Two I'm going to use on my main line, one I'm going to have in reserve. I've got the Isengard Ballista, which you're going to see a lot of in at least the next 2 battles that I put up. It had a really amusing impact on a subsequent video, but you guys will see that when we get to it. But if you guys don't know about the Isengard Ballista, it's very, very potent. Probably, I would say it's the best siege weapon in the game, by far. It does a lot of area effect damage. It's fairly accurate, much more accurate than a catapult. It's just all around a really nice tool to have. Also got a couple units of the Snaga Skirmishers. You can see them there with their custom reskin for Isengard only. I've also got a unit of Guards of the Orthanc, which I love to take. I love to take support units, and I've found that I've been playing battles with a lot of support units lately, just because their morale effects can be so powerful. And they're definitely there for you to use. They cost a fair amount. So these guys give 5 morale to everybody around them, and of course they're 2 HP spearmen, not easy to knock down. My main line is going to consist. Ooh, I've actually got a couple units of half-orc spear guards, but they're going to be fighting on my flanks. Where did my yes? Here's my main block of infantry. I got 3 units of Isengard pikes and 3 units of Uruk-hai infantry that are going to be the mainstay workhorse fighting force for my Isengard army, as they should be. I think that just about does it for my army, so let's go ahead and pop over here. We have the forces of Maximus Decimus Meridius, also known as Apollo in the Discord. Not the Apollo you're probably thinking of, but just one of our moderators and one of our longtime testers. Got some Eastron warriors here, and Runa's actually got some pretty exciting upgrades. Well, the basic unit of Eastron warriors has a new model that was given to them by Cowering Coma. And then, of course, there's this one here that was done by Sin, so they have an upgrade. They now have the Hardy trait, so they're able to fight a lot better. I think they've gotten up to 8 damage and 8 charge, and I think they've got maybe 7 or 8 melee defense. So they're pretty nice men-at-arms. You know, they're a little bit larger, just because the Eastern units tend to be a little bit larger, and their defense is far below that you'd expect from the Sword and Board units from the Men of the West. But overall, it makes a nice little flavor addition to Rune's main line and gives them a little bit of extra killing power because you can upgrade them quite substantially. Got some Loke Flag Rim over here. Also got nice buffs to Loke Flag Rim coming in patch 0.97. I believe they've got an extra point of melee defense and an extra point of damage, as many of the Men-at-Arms type units have. So that brings them up to 6 damage base, and you can upgrade that all the way to 7, which is going to help them overcome some of the higher or even mid-tier melee defense values that Rune kind of struggled with in the past. Got some Loke Scion Rim here, I believe 2 units of them. Gamp Rim as well, got some extra damage. Got some Variag Mercenaries out in the front, rocking the new skins given to them by the Cowering Coma. This applies to the mounted versions as well. And these guys actually have their armor upgrades, so they're a little bit tankier. Variag Mercenaries being pretty well known, I think, among Rune players for being the tankiest archer option that they have. Not the most deadly, but certainly the most durable. Over here got some more Flag Rim, got some Eastron Warriors, and I know that there's some crossbows hidden in here. And what do you know, we got some crossbows here with their armor upgrades. 2 units Eastron Crossbowmen. And then over here we've got a unit of Dragon's Wrath Warlords, who I absolutely love the look of. Probably one of the coolest looking Cataphract units in the game, very unique. Even the Camel's Dragon Knights can't top these guys for style, even though they're stronger in close quarters. And then finally, the creme de la creme of the runic skirmishing line, we've got the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen. For the time being, I think there was something wrong with their fiery projectiles. Now they just have the Blacklock projectile. But for .97, there's going to be a ton of new projectiles, and I don't think that the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen are going to be excluded from that. A lot of the Rangers are getting new different projectiles. Not everybody is going to be body piercing anymore. They're going to have some interesting utility effects. And the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen also have, hopefully we'll get their fiery projectile back. One other note, because I know people have asked if Rune's getting new units, but generally no, because Rune's lineup is already very long established. It's well filled out, it's well rounded, it's got everything that Rune needs to be a successful faction and to have their own little identity. But they will be getting a dragon cannon, which I believe will, I think it's, if it's not being modeled from scratch, it'll probably be modeled off of one of the Hell Cannons from Botet, and it'll probably have its own fiery projectile as well. And I believe Crow Grochan is working on that. So that should be coming at .97, but we'll see what happens. Still have another 2 factions to complete before that can be a thing. Over here, we have the Forces of Khan being commanded by none other than UMAD Commander. He's got some Nomadic Light Infantry here. At least 3 or so units of them. Yeah, 3 units of the Nomadic Light Infantry, actually 4. So going for a bit of a numbers approach here. Got some Nomadic Slave Cavalry, which are some basic Horse Archer units, but they're actually quite tanky. I think they're about 2 or so armor, but they've got about 3 shield value, so it kind of works out for them. Lots of New Rod Footmen, I believe to the tune of 4 units of New Rod Footmen. New Rod Footmen, again, they got a buff. They've had a fair amount of changes, and we know whether or not they stand the test of time, I suppose, will remain to be seen. But they are now, I believe, 6 damage, and they have some formidable defenses and things like that. They've got a good shield value. They don't have quite as much armor as the Lokefly Grim. I believe they have about 3 less armor, but 2 more shield than the Lokefly Grim. And they also have some more melee defense. I believe 1 more melee defense than the Lokefly Grim. So ultimately, the 2 units they're pretty evenly matched. Although I would normally give it to the Lokefly Grim, but I guess it really depends. Yeah, 4 units of them, and they're a little bit more substantial because they have lost their shield wall ability, and they've lost a little bit of numbers. And I think they went up in price, but you gotta pay for the extra killing power somewhere. Here we got some Variag Warriors. I believe there's at least 2 units of the Variag Warriors unupgraded. Also getting a buff in .97, extra melee damage, extra charge damage. They are a part of the Shock Troop overhaul, so I think they've got about 12 charge now, with their 9 attack. That puts them up to about 21 charge. So they can be decent. They only cost 550, which is always nice. Got some Variag Bowmen out in front here, decent units of foot skirmishers, and some Neurite Halberds. Neurite Halberds have probably undergone the most drastic change of all of the Khan infantry. Again, they've shrunk to 180, so we've standardized the size of the Neurod units, but they got some more morale, and they got some more damage and some more melee defense, so ultimately I think it kind of works out in their favor. And moving on here, some more Variag Warriors, more Neurod Footmen, the unit of Slave Cavalry, but where are they? Yes, UMAD is bringing 2 units of the Huacha, which is always fun to see. A lot of fireworks going to be going off on the battlefield today. The Huacha can be a little bit literally hit or miss. It can fire in one direction, and it can absolutely annihilate things that are in loose formation. If this manages to get a hold of Momikil, it's an absolute terror. It will rout that unit pretty well immediately, and it will not come back ever. So it does have its uses. 2 of them it's a little bit expensive, a little bit risky, and you can see that he's kind of economized by bringing some not very strong units like the light infantry. A little bit of lag, but hopefully it works out for him. I think there's one other unit over here. This is where the General's bodyguards can be hanging out. We've got the Storm Guard of Khans, previously known as the Chieftain's Vanguard. Very colorful. I actually quite like the look of these guys. It's one of the more colorful units in the game. It's quite beautiful. And we move on over here to the 4th and final Blue Team Army. We have the Goblins of the Misty Mountains. If you guys haven't guessed yet, this is a good versus evil event, and they're going to be played by Tundra's Fox. I believe Tundra's Fox is a big fan of the Goblins of the Misty Mountains. It's certainly one of the factions that we've spoken about at length in testing. And he's bringing a couple units here of the Goblin Archers, 2 units of Mangonel, and there's going to be lots. Look at this. This is very appropriate. The Goblins are going to be fighting in the hills on this rough terrain, where they're going to excel. And of course, they've got a couple units of their mangonels, which they can use to plop down here on one of these little firing perches and really be devastating. You're going to see a lot from the mangonels in this battle today. Moving on over here, got the main line, Goblin Heavy Infantry, lots of Gobbo Heavy Infantry. 3 or 4 units of them. Got some Heavy Goblin Spears. Oops, not skirmishers, just got moved somewhere. Snow Patrols, more Heavy Gobbo Infantry, yet more. I think we have the full complement of 6 here. Cave Troll Drummers, going to keep those Gobbos in line. Bulks Champions, very, very strong. And seeing as they're going to be facing off against Rohan, it is going to be very much a needed addition to their army. I think they've got some more elite troops back here. No, it's really a ton of chaff from the looks of things, but I know that there's got to be more of them somewhere. There's probably some more troops hidden back here in the woods. Yeah, we got a Goblin's King Bodyguard. Again, another support unit. Very important for factions like the Misty Mountains to bring these support units like the Troll Drummers, like the Goblin's Bodyguard. They give a ton of morale. Our morale effects are probably the strongest that I've seen in any mod from Medieval 2 ever. And it is highly, highly recommended that people take advantage of them. It will prevent troops from breaking, prevent disasters from happening. It's just altogether a really good idea. So that does it for the blue team. Let's go ahead and see what Team Red is bringing to the battle today. So the army directly facing myself is the forces of Gondor, being commanded by Mech Thorn. He's brought, I think he's got a couple units of the Sentinels of Hyrule. He's definitely got a Mithrandir's Retainer Bodyguard. We've got a new look to them. Very, very sexy indeed. Kind of like a combination between Gondor Infantry and the helmets of the Carandos Marksmen. He's also brought, because of course he has, some Fountain Guard. Looking real beautiful out here in the snow. Guard of the Citadel. Got, I believe, 2 companies of the Pelargir Marines, 2 companies of the Forebearers of Valakirka. He's also got some Nimlothian Honor Guard, because of course he does. Very strong support unit. Again, you're going to see a lot from support units. I think people are starting to finally realize their value. Company of Fountain Guard right there. Fair amount of hidden units. I think he's got at least 2 companies of the Gondor Archers. A number of Gondor Spearmen, probably to the tune of about 2 or 3 companies of them. And mostly a lot of spear units, so we're going to see Gondor really, who specializes in their spear units generally, they're definitely going to double down on it pretty heavily today. Did I mention the Guard of the Citadel? Definitely, I think I definitely left them out. 2 companies of the Guard of the Citadel. Altogether, a very strong polearm army. A lot of AP in there as well, which is going to be a nightmare for my poor Isengarders. Moving on over here, we have the Realm of Lindon being commanded by Vision. He's got some Mithlon Swordmasters. Noldorin Guard, who just look absolutely sexy. Every time I see these guys, I have to talk about how damned awesome of a modeler and texture artist that Arthalion is. So nice. So freaking nice. Harlenon Infantry out here. 2 companies of them. I got some Mithlon Marines. Looking fly as ever. With their new-ish reskins by the Cowering Coma. Got some Mithlon Pikes out here in front. 2 companies of the Mithlon Pikemen. And then we got to take a look at the Forlondon units. May notice that some things are a little bit different here. They have new helmets, which I think are pretty damned neat. They're kind of like a combination of the older helmets plus the Mithlon helmets, plus that crest that Lothlorien kind of has on the front of their head. You know the one I'm talking about on their heavy units. And yeah, overall, it just makes them look better. The older ones they're all right. They had some texture problems, but this helmet I prefer quite a lot. And that's going to be 2 companies there, the Forlondon Archers, and I know that he's got a ton of cav over here as well. 2 units of Mithlon Lancers, 1 unit of the Mithlon Nobles, who are going to be an absolute terror. Mithlon Nobles really give me the business in this battle. You guys will see how in just a little bit. And I know he's got a company of Wardens of Elastirion hidden around here somewhere. Let's move on now to his ally. We have the forces of Dale, who has received a lot of changes in this patch. And I've actually had a chance to play a game with Dale, and you guys are going to see that on Gondorian Smith's channel, and I really, really, really liked them. I was very satisfied with how they performed, especially this new unit here, the one we're looking at, the Lake Town Bowmen, who are kind of a fusion of the Lake Town Infantry and the Lake Town Bows. I think they've got about 5 ammunition, so they're not intended to be a replacement for any of your archers. They are capped, I believe, at 3 or 4, something like that. I generally don't tend to bring more than 3 of them because I don't think it's worth it. But yeah, they've got 5 shots, and they're also pretty decent men-at-arms units after the fact as well. Got a solid shield value of 6, well, pretty middle-of-the-road shield value of 6, 6 damage, a decent amount of melee defense, I think to the tune of about 5, maybe? 5 or 6, something like that. So about, yeah, 17, 18 or so defense total. Just a really nice unit. You can mix them in with the Lake Town Pikes, give yourself a shooty phalanx, which nobody else can boast. I love it. Absolutely love the way the Dale has turned out in this patch. Over here we got some Barding Herd. Got some Earls of Esgaroth mixed in there who are quite formidable. I really like the Earls of Esgaroth. Got some Barding Herd. Yet more Barding Herd. I think the Jirian's Paladins are mixed in there as well. Yeah, a lot of AP. Look at this is just a block of armor piercing. Except for the Earls of Dale, but altogether very, very strong. Bardian Marksman. I love the Bardian Marksman. Again, in one of my battles with Dale, these guys were a godsend. Once the Lake Town front line begins to fall apart, you can throw these guys in. And they are no joke. I think they've got about 9 or so damage base, and you can upgrade them to have 10, and something like 9 or 10 armor in addition to their decent shield value of 5. So tanky. These guys are not going to get shot to death. I've not had a game where my Bardian Marksmen have been shot to death by archer units. It just doesn't happen. So very, very strong. Definitely a supremacy unit for Dale. Well, up here we got some Blackshot Dragon Slayers, AP Archers, extremely useful anti-cavalry tool, and they are well situated to be an absolute terror if anything comes out here and is trying to maneuver around on to the wings and give Dale the business. I love the Blackshot Dragon Slayers. I think they're getting a new model and some reskins, and I think they might be getting a different projectile, so they will be shrinking, so they won't necessarily be AP. Well, they will be AP, but they'll be something different, kind of like a mobile ballista unit. And we'll see how that works out. That may not make it to .97, but you never know. A couple units here at Earls of Dale have also got some decent buffs. Not too much to say about them, though. And then we move on to the 4th and final Red Team Army. Yes, we're finally bringing this to a close. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but I love talking about this, so timestamps in the description. Always. Always. Doesn't really help when I tell you that at the end of the army stuff, but you know, if you've been watching my videos, you probably know that by now. Sons of Eorl, sexy, real sexy. They haven't got their new models yet, but I'm sure that Cowering Coma is getting around to it. Eomer leads the unit. This is one of actually the only knight unit for Rohan. Very, very strong. Over here, got the Aelred of Aldburg. Got their new skins, looking very, very sexy. I think they've got some extra armor over what they had in previous patches. Altogether, a really strong unit. Riddermark Skirmishers here, one of the few melee cavalry units that Rohan can field. You can bring about 2 of them. They're also javelins, nice little hybrid units, but they are quite fragile, however. Over here we got some Riders of the Fold. I think this is the higher tier version of them, so like the mid-tier horse skirmisher for Rohan. Very, very tanky with their shields and their heavy armor. Altogether, a really, really nice unit. I think we can see the rest of Rohan's army over this way. Inksvitz bringing some Riddermark archers, and it's an important thing to note, and I've said this a million times, but if you guys are just joining us for the first time, or you've missed some of the other videos, Rohan's infantry has shrunk, but they have improved markedly. And you're going to see that in a lot of the .97 battles to come. I have a few from the last patch that I want to put up as well. That will hopefully make it onto the channel. If not, trust me, Rohan's infantry gotten a lot better. There's just not as many of them. And so you really need to invest in your cavalry. You could try and go full infantry as Rohan. It probably won't be the most effective strategy. You do need to play with your cavalry, which is exactly what I want. Got some Riddermark archers here in any case. Eastmark Spearmen, I think 3 to 4 companies of the Eastmark Spearmen. They have a small clutch of javelins. They're like low tier javelins, so they're only 5 damage. So they're not super game breaking, but they can be very useful as a disruption tool, and it does make people think twice before approaching them. Behind them we got some Helmingas, decent mid-tier infantry units after the fact. I think they've got about 8 or 9 damage, something like that. Quite tanky, lower shield value of 3, but still, altogether, not a bad unit at all. Got some Riddermark Axemen on the second line. Haven't seen them in any battles yet, but damn do they look cool. I can't remember exactly how these guys have changed, except for the fact that they've gotten smaller. Maybe got a bit more armor, a bit more morale. Certainly got some more charge damage, though, so they can be devastating on the charge. Behind them, we got some Shield Maidens of Eowyn. They will be getting a reskin, I'm almost 100% certain. Got some Riddermark Spearmen, who, unlike the Eastmark Spearmen, lack a javelin unit, but their defensive capabilities and their damage and their morale are much improved. Then we got another unit of the Aelred of Aldburg, because of course we do. Some more Shield Maidens of Eowyn, and a first Marshal's Bodyguard. Did I mention that they're being played by Inksvitz? I think I might have forgotten about that. Just got lost in my own spiel. But there you have it. Army comps. Let's kick it off. So the first, I would say, half or so of this battle is going to be a fairly lengthy skirmish phase. Been seeing a lot of that, and I'm kind of okay with it because games aren't like won or lost in the skirmish phase, but it is significant in its own way. But yes, we're gonna get a little sense of what's going on here. You can see I'm trying to bring Gondor forward towards my pike line by harassing him with my ballista. But if you take a look at how Thorin is deployed here, this is kind of how you need to. This is kind of how you need to play it when you're at an artillery disadvantage. Ooh, some of those Midlothian honor guard just got fricasseed. There's a little handful of them there. Still only a drop in the bucket out of an 80-man unit, however. But yeah, so spreading yourselves out like this, even especially in loose formation, waiting for your opponent to run out of ammunition, or at the very least it will stop them from shooting at you. And loose formation units, especially spears, are not helpless if they get charged by cavalry. If cavalry find themselves surrounded, attacked on all sides by units that have significant bonuses against them. So it is important. In any case, Dragon's Wrath Warlords getting some early harass here on the Gondor archers. I'm going to be doing the same thing on the other side, kind of double teaming Thorin here. I know that if I move forward and just attack him with all those pikes and the Fountain Guard and the Pelargir Marines, that I'm going to have a really bad day. So I want to make him come to me. I want to have a battle on my own terms. Gondor archers here getting charged down by my Warg Riders. Wolves of Isengard are feasting well tonight. Ooh, a quick javelin volley there into my Warg Riders. I'm going to send them packing. Pelargir Marines doing their best to counter that charge. Ooh, one more shot. Nope, they're going to be out of range. I'm going to get out of there without having lost a single one of my wargs. At least not yet. And because the other units of archers were being occupied by the cataphracts, I was able to do that and get away with it scot-free. Normally, I don't recommend you do this with your wargs. Do not charge into your enemy skirmishing units from the front. Your wargs will get shot to bits. Mithlon trying to countercharge here. Vision moving forward with his Mithlon nobles. I'm hoping to catch them out of position because my champions of the White Hand were hiding. But unfortunately, Vision was on top of it. Sees it coming, and me not wanting to get shot to bits, as I was saying earlier, by these skirmishers, I'm going to pull back with my champions of the White Hand because I know I am going to need them. I can see the profiles of that Elven cavalry hanging out here in the woods. The Mithlon Lancers are Javcav, in addition to being some pretty decent Lancers. And of course, there's the Gondorians over here as well. Some hidden Gondor cavalry that I missed coming out of the woods. I know I am outgunned in terms of cavalry, so I cannot afford to be reckless. But early on, this was an easy enough thing to get done just because he was so distracted and moving forward and just generally in a state of disarray. So, skirmishing phase marches on. It's a very mercenary. Oh, looks like Rune is going to try and pull back here. They don't want to advance into this Linden territory because they will get shot to pieces. They will get absolutely devastated. A lot of Mithlon Marines here, a lot of pikes to hold their infantry in place, and Rune doesn't have pikes to counter these pikes. And of course, there's also the Dalians nearby, so this would be an absolute massacre if they were to go forward. So Rune is kind of forced onto the defensive, doing their best here with their Varag mercenaries, but against that Elven skill and not having a ton of room to spread themselves out, the Varag mercenaries are going to be hard-pressed to win the day. Moving on over here, my commander and most of his Khandish army are out this way. Dale is positioning themselves in front of this gap here to block their enemies, but it does, of course, leave them open to getting shot by the Hwacha, and it looks like that's already been happening. Some of the Earls of Dale getting caught up in that. The thing about the Hwacha is that it doesn't do a ton of damage to any one single unit, but when you target blobs like this, it spreads those casualties across multiple units, so it does rack up. If you look on the ground here, that's a fair few amount of dead men. Looks like it's going off again. I love the look of this thing. It actually has a really cool graphic when it hits people. I'd love to see that added to the game generally, so that every time someone dies, you get that satisfying blood spray. Yeah, you can see it in the back there. Oh, a really good shot of it right there. He-Man Commander reaping a bloody harvest amongst the ranks of his enemy. Looks like Rohan is moving forward here, bending themselves backwards a little bit, trying to use the terrain to their advantage to bottle up the superior numbers of Misty Mountains and Khand, which is not a bad idea at all. You can see Misty Mountains moving forward through the hills here, get a nice little shot, give you a sense of the terrain of this map, which I am really, really proud of. It took me like a day and a half of almost straight working on a day off, and then a little bit farther into the rest of my day. Ooh, got some Blackback Mountain Berserkers here, as well as the Goblin King's Bodyguards. We do have some elite units amongst the Misty Mountains forces. It's not all chaff as I had originally assessed, but yeah, get a nice little sweeping shot here Get a sense of the scale of this battle. This was such an exciting game to play. But I'm going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit because the skirmish phase is going to take some time. And I'll see you guys in just a few moments. Back over on my side of things, we can see another simultaneous assault being launched on the Gondorian skirmish line. Again, we want to induce them to come forward and fight us where we can have a battle on our terms. For moving forward, we're going to be walking into a lot of danger. A couple units of Pelargian Marines being the least of our worries. Of course, there's all the Nimlothians and things like that. Ooh, somebody just got fried up here. I'm pretty sure that was some of the Gondorian spearmen. Another attack by the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. This one is not going to be quite so easy. They're going to be charging headlong into Gondorian spearmen. These spearmen are not braced, they are simply counter-charging. So they are not going to get their spear bonus activated, and they're actually going to take a fair amount of damage in the counter-charge. 2 HP heavily armored cataphracts like this can accomplish this once or twice, pardon me, before they begin to fall away. And at the same time, launching an attack forward with my Warg Riders of Isengard. Really want to give these Gondor archers the business. Ooh. Nice charge right there into the Gondorian archers. Not going anywhere though. They seem to feel fairly confident with all the support that they have nearby. Javelin volley from the Pelargian Marines, that is going to be nasty for the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. They can get away with charges into spearmen like this when the spearmen aren't braced. Maybe once or twice, but with armor-piercing missiles in support, this is a death trap for the Dragon's Wrath Warlords. Trying to hack down these Gondorian archers. Ultimately, this is probably not going to be all that worth it. The Gondorian spearmen haven't taken a ton of damage. I think about 50 or so casualties. Meanwhile, over here, take a look at some of the deployments. You can see that Dale and Rohan are bending themselves backwards here. Again, using the terrain, trying to get some advantage from these hills here. Meanwhile, the goblins are trying to do the same thing. Circumvent that position, widen the front by going around these hills, using the hills as cover, and pressing their enemies ever further together. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. This is potentially a very fateful decision, just because, pardon me, the goblins and things like that, they'll have their enemies pretty well where they want them. They've got a couple units of mangonels, so pressing themselves together like this into a big compact blob will do great against the goblin rank and file infantry. Pardon me, guys. But the mangonels are the real game changer in this case. They're going to have a great firing position up here on this elevated ridge line. Yeah, and that could potentially cause some serious problems, some mass routes among the lower tier Dalish forces. The Barding Herd and the Earls should be able to stand up to that pretty well. The Girian's Paladins, of course, are not going to be going anywhere. Neither the Blackshot Dragon Slayers, but yeah, it is a concern being defensive like this. Sometimes you kind of just have to sit there and take it and take to the offensive. Meanwhile, up the center here, you can see the Air Raid of Aldburg have charged into the Pneumatic Light Infantry, and it looks like they have paid the price. I'm pretty sure there's some nearby support units in the form of the Variac Mercenaries and some of the other the Runic units that are quite adept at slaying cavalry. Rune is now content for the time being still to hold their position, and most of the action seems to be going on either on my side of things, what little there is at this point in the game, or over here where the maneuvering is quite significant and may have some ramifications later. But I just wanted to mention that, so we're going to go ahead and skip forward just a little bit, and I'll see you guys in a few moments. Over on the Misty Mountain side of things, battle is about to be joined as the Rohirrim cavalry come thundering through the hills. The Air Raid of Aldburg leading the way into what appears to be just a line of goblin infantry. The goblins are still a little bit out of position. Many of their men not quite reached the front yet, and Rohan is taking advantage of this chaos by charging in here with their Lancer units. This is going to hurt. Those goblins are going to take it on the chin, and a lot of them are going to die very, very quickly. That's okay, though. They are quite expendable. Another Lancer charge over there. I think that's the same unit. Is that second company of the Air Raid of Aldburg? Yes, indeed it is. We have both of them over here. This is one of the ones that's a bit wounded. It was doing some fighting in the center against Rune and Khand. Getting another charge here. Just trying to either make their enemies panic or thin out some of their massive numbers. But you can see the Misty Mountains getting their act together. Warg Riders moving forward. We actually have the Sons of Eorl being driven back, shaken by the Bolt's champions. Now the Rohirrim cavalry is going to be under a lot of pressure. They've managed to flatten a few companies of the heavy goblin infantry. Well, that is okay. Some missile units now getting themselves in position, getting their act together. And the area of Aldburg are starting to take mounting casualties. Engsvitz, I think, sees the danger that he's in here, and he's going to fall back. But the cavalry of the Rohirrim is going to suffer in the retreat. Now, if we take a look at the percentage killed here, pretty well even. So those goblins are just a drop in the bucket of what the Misty Mountains, and indeed the blue team, have to field today. But still, a little bit of a very fierce back and forth here. You can see many goblins still charging forward in disarray, looking to pursue the Rohirrim across the plains, supported by the Bolt's champions. They are feeling pretty confident. Riders of the Fold. Not too sure what they're shooting at. Riddermark skirmishers coming back around this way, looking to get some shots at the Bolt's champions. Great play here on the part of Engsvitz. They are going to be forced to retreat, though. The Bolt's champions, momentum carrying them forward too fast for the Riddermark skirmishers to get their javelins off. Oh, unfortunately, they are not going to be able to escape unscathed. The Riddermark skirmishers going to take some heavy casualties here in the retreat. Snow Trolls coming forward. All the beasties and fury of the Misty Mountains unleashed upon this single unit of Riddermark skirmishers. They are going to deftly skirt away. Some of the Bolt's champions did fall. Certainly some of their HP is now missing. Rohan doing their best to cycle charge in and out here, but Tundra's Fox is having none of it. He's got his heavy goblin spear companies forward, and I think that's going to be the end of the game. Riders of the Fold doing their best to try and put pressure on the Misty Mountains forces as they extend themselves forward to chase his cavalry. Sons of Eorl falling back. But once the Goblin skirmishers get forward and they're protected by the spears, then that company of horse archers is going to have to retreat, lest they be overwhelmed. Meanwhile, over here you can see Misty Mountains of Khand and Khand have combined their forces together, presenting a united frontier here against their enemies. Hwacha moving forward. Ooh, this is a really juicy target for the Hwacha. They get another volley off here and just rake through this line of units. That's going to be devastating. At least a couple of percentage points knocked off there, but for the time being, 7-7, very even. We have over here Gondor moving forward. Thorn finally has had enough of this skirmish fight, and he wants to get in there and get stuck in with his heavily armored Gondorians. I don't have any crossbows, so he doesn't have too much to worry about on the advance. I do have a couple companies of Snog skirmishers, but he doesn't know that just yet. Let's see, I'm moving forward with the main body of my infantry, trying to reposition my Isengard Ballista, which is not in a good spot to take some shots at these advancing Gondorian infantry. These forebears of Valakirka, very bunched up. That would be a juicy target, but unfortunately Thorn kind of caught me a little bit by surprise. We were intending to move forward and attack him. As you can see, there's a detachment of Easterlings, a couple companies of Eastron warriors, and some Lokeflag Rim being sent over to my aid, but Thorn attacked us before we were ready. And of course, he's got some of his allies over here as well. If you take a look, there's one visible company of Earls of Dale, but there is a second one around here as well, and they've added their strength to that of Lyndon and the Gondorian cavalry. So now they're going to launch an all-out assault on my left wing, and my Warg Riders, they're pretty good, but there's not nearly enough of them. Even bolstered by the strength of the champions of the White Hand, it's not going to be an easy fight. I'm going to have to be very judicious with how I use my cavalry units, lest they be overwhelmed. Gondor cavalry thundering across the hills, getting over this last little bend, and I'm going to pull back my Uruk-hai archers, lest they be charged down. Mithon Lancers moving forward. Now's a good opportunity for my Warg Riders. These guys can't see them. I think they're still hidden. Oh, no, they would just have come into view. My champions of the White Hand going to move forward. Gondorian cavalry, it looks like they were going after my Uruk-hai archers, but he didn't see me pull them back. Meanwhile, the main line fight is going on here. Gondor spearmen charging in to the Uruk-hai. My Snaga skirmishers raining down death upon the forebears of Valakirka, which is the Scythe of the Valar, which is a very appropriate name for a unit that is essential to the Gondor main line assault, as these pike units are. My Uruk-hai all dropped into defensive position. They're going to hold their ground and wait out the storm, grind down the Gondorians if they can. Meanwhile, over here, the Fountain Guard advancing, and things are looking pretty bleak for me. I thought this was a fight that I would win fairly reasonably easily if I could get that fight on my terms, but now that I go back and look at it, I was in some serious trouble. Guard of the Citadel bearing down on my lines. Ooh, my poor Spear Guard getting softened up by a volley or two from the Pelargir Marines. A little bit of a mistake here. Sentinels of Halloween charging forward into my spears, although my spears are out of position. So this will be an appropriate spearhead for this Gondorian assault. Guard of the Citadel going to follow that up here. Really nicely timed attacks on the part of Thorn. You can definitely see he's one of the veteran players. A 1, a 2, and a 3. Like 60 or so of my Spear Guard, I think, have fallen quite quickly. I'm scrambling my guards of the Orthanc to try and do what they can, and support our units and try and keep them out of routing range. Champions of the White Hand moving forward to silence the unit of Pelargir Marines. Fountain Guard moving in now. Again, this combination of Fountain Guard and Guard of the Citadel overwhelming my poor half-orc Spear Guard. They're not a bad unit, but that is not a fight that they are going to win easily. Over here, got my War Riders, pitting them against the Earls of Dale. More Earls of Dale coming in. Got some Mithrandir's bodyguard here. Looks like Thorn lost a little bit of micro. Dragon's Wrath bodyguard now heavily reduced because of their fights with the Mithlon Lancers, who stayed just out of range and beat down these noble cataphracts. My Warg Riders, now that the Earlish Dales have pulled out because of the presence of my Champions of the White Hand, I'm going to take that opportunity to move in here and surround the Mithrandir's bodyguard. Another company of Dale circling backwards. You can see the Earls of Dale quite heavily mauled, about half unit strength, pulling out to try and find some use elsewhere. Now, thankfully, at this dire hour, my ally Maximus Decimus Meridius has arrived. A couple companies of Eastron Warriors. Ahem. Sorry about that, everybody. I thought my replay was corrupted for a moment, but it seems to be okay now. So now that my Uruk-hai legions have been reinforced with just a few hundred Easterling warriors, most especially the Lokflag Rim, they are certainly a sight for sore eyes against these guards of the Citadel. They're going to have a field day smashing apart these heavily armored bruisers. Meanwhile, the Eastron Warriors ain't no joke in melee anymore, and they're going to make some nice fodder here to help me hold my wings, most especially my wings. If you take a look, company of Fountain Guard have been committed over here, and I've been forced to throw a few hundred Uruk-hai archers under the bus just to try and keep my wing intact. Sorry about that. Bringing over my guards of the Orthanc. I've also got some Snaga skirmishers on their way to try and make these heavily armored Gondorian warriors pay. Meanwhile, over in the woods, things are looking pretty grim. My wargs are outnumbered. Oof, a little bit of lag. My wargs are outnumbered and just outmatched by the sheer skill and... there we go. Much better. By the sheer skill and numerical superiority of our enemies. Over here, managing to deal with at least one company of the Pelargir Marines. I think the other one is still very much intact, so I'm going to start to focus on my archer fire on them so they can't do a number on my massed ranks of Uruk-hai. And speaking of, they're doing very well. The Gondorians are brave and they are well armored, but my Uruk-hai are numerically superior, and it really seems to be winning the day in this case. Let's pop back on over to the other end, see what's going on. See some Helmingas up here on the hill contesting the road with the goblins as they slowly but surely advance forward. Tundra's Fox, because of the nature of both the armies of Umat and Tundra's Fox, Umat having invested quite a lot into his artillery along with Tundra's Fox, they are going to be content to sit back behind the waves upon waves of their infantry and take some pot shots at their enemies. Especially these Eastmark Spearmen. Like I said, they are lower tier javelins, but against some of the units like the Goblin Heavy Spears or the Goblin Heavy Infantry, they can be quite the pain. See over here, the Watch are getting some good kills, forcing the good factions even farther back, which is only going to play into the hands of Tundra's Fox's Mangonel Heavy Army. Let's pop back on over to the other wing. That is where the action is for the time being. Kick it up to full speed. Apollo maneuvering his Eastron Warriors into situations where they are needed, where crises are happening. So far, my masses of Orc Archers and Orc Spear Guard have managed to hold down the Gondorians, but they have bisected my formation here. Ooh, Mithrandir's Retainer Bodyguard coming in from the rear. Got my guards of the Orthanc nearby. Champions of the White Hand charging in there as well. I'm going to get them out of there as soon as I can. Don't want to get them stuck in on the Fountain Guard. So my Warg Riders have been routed. I am going to manage to get a nice flanking charge here onto the Earls of Dale, kill some of them. but Starling is going to make it around my position, circumvent my lines. This is where it gets ugly. This is where the madness begins. They may be melee cavalry, but they are still cavalry, charging into the flank and rear of my my Urukai archers. Even though I am being bolstered here with some Eastron warriors, Apollo has definitely chosen a good spot to commit them. Things are not looking great on my left wing. Earls of Dale being chased down by my champions of the White Hand. Got some Snaga skirmishers nearby, and they're going to collide with them. My Isengard Ballista crew trying to get in there. I'm just trying to throw everything I have at them. He's going to charge at my lines. My Urukai pikemen are going to zone them out, keep them moving. It's a real cat and mouse game here. Looks like he was going for maybe my Ballista. I realized didn't have any troops. Almost getting routed again, the Earls of Dale. I'm going to charge into the rear. My poor Snaga skirmishers, who are undefended. My wargs are just don't seem to be quick enough to keep pace with the Earls of Dale. One of my warg riders luckily did come back from routing. And they're going to get a nice charge here into the rear of the Earls of Dale as they are pinned against the unwashed masses of my Snaga skirmishers. And those armor-piercing anti-cavalry melee cav supremacy units are going to have a field day mulching apart those Earls of Dale. Meanwhile, over here, the addition of the Loke Flag Rim has been significant. The Fountain Guard and the Guard of the Citadel in a real tough spot. The Guard of the Citadel actually breaking. The Fountain Guard down to 11, thinking about doing the same. Nasty charge here from the Warriors of Hirluin into the Eastron Warriors as they try to encircle the failing Gondor center. But so far it seems like, at least in the infantry fight, we've got things well in hand. Unfortunately, more Rohirrim cavalry has showed up on scene. A raid of Aldburg with their nasty charge really being a problem for me. Trying to get into the rear there with my guards of the Orthanc. It's not going to be enough, though. Oh, maybe they will manage to connect with a few of them. Oh, maybe we'll rout them here. That would certainly be beautiful. It looks like the raid of Aldburg are going to manage to escape, but only just barely. Earls of Dale going to want to get out of there as a wave of Orthanc spearmen moves forward to crush them. Mithlon nobles back here as well should be in the fray, should be helping out the main line. That would certainly be a better use of those chariots than having them sit back here and toss their javelins. What do we got over here? A raid of Aldburg getting chased down by my now heavily reduced champions of the White Hand. I think that's the second company of Air Raid of Aldburg, and they're going to go after, right into my half-orc spear guard. So we got a nice little pincer movement here, potentially. Loke Flag Rim, trying to get a piece of them as well. Guards of the Citadel actually routed off that way, but if you look back here, it is just thick with enemy cavalry. Got the Mithlon Lancers here, the Mithlon Nobles, at least two companies of the Air Raid of Aldburg, and of course, one remaining heavily reduced company of the Earls of Dale. I think this might be... Nope, they are going to survive that again. The Fountain Guard holding it down here, despite overwhelming numeric... Look at this, they've just created a ring of dead evil forces around them. Really is a testament to the skill and tenacity of the Guard of the Citadel and the Fountain Guard units. We here got 11 Marines of Pelargir trying to do their best, but it's a drop in the bucket. And the Melothian Honor Guard in the center have been defeated by the Urukai. And now Gondor Center, what remains of it is being rolled up, and then my forces are going to be free to move in against the remaining cavalry units. Let's go ahead and slow things down just a little bit here. As you can see, the Goblins of the Misty Mountains are now in a general charge against the forces of the Rohirrim. Goblin Archers charging forward, Eastmark Spearmen opening up on them. We got one more volley here, but these Goblin Archers are out in front for one reason and one reason only, and that is to die in the place of things that are more valuable. It's not a glorious job. Somebody's got to do it, though. Nice charge here by the Goblin Archers. Looks like they are going to take down some of the Eastmark Spearmen. Rittermark Skirmishers in there as well, hacking apart these Gobbos. Also tossing their javelins into this general Goblin advance, along with some of the Kondish units as well. This is just one big, ugly scrap about to take place. And you can see in the back here, I think the Helmingas were driven off of the hills, and now the Goblins have managed to encircle the left wing of the good team. That's gonna be telling. The Goblins are gonna be able to just descend from the hills. This is very much a Battle of the Five Armies kind of thing, where the Goblins come down from the mountain heights onto the spurs of the mountains and catch the Free Peoples by surprise. So it seems like Rohan is struggling here to hold down the line, and it doesn't seem like Oh, they are getting some help from Dale. Starling rushing his battalions of Barding Herd to the center to meet the Nurad footmen and to establish a stable front line so these Eastmark spearmen here do not find themselves outflanked and destroyed. I think that's the Linden general or maybe the Gondor general. But let's take just a quick look over on the other side. We've managed to grind down the Gondorians, but at fairly great cost to ourselves. Now the rest of my forces surrounding what remains, taking out the remaining Gondor infantry. Of course, we still have a pocket of Fountain Guard here, and there's all of this cavalry all over the place. I've got some Guards of the Orthanc back here, trying to do their best, trying to be as obnoxious as possible. So my Uruk-hai archers, along with my Warg riders, hunting down these scattered bands of cavalry here. One of my Uruk-hai infantry units pulled off here to try and get a piece of these Mithlond lancers, and a piece they shall have. They're going to feast on elf flesh as they cut down these out of position and isolated Mithlond warriors. Yeah, you can see kind of how the battle is shaping up there. There's another general attack here in the center as UMAC Commander moves forward with his pneumatic light infantry against a Mithlond spear wall backed up with Harlandon infantry. This is not going to go well. They do have the numbers, but for how long, really? And of course, Rune still has the majority of their forces as well. They haven't really committed much. Looks like some of the Sentinels of Hirluin managed to make their way over here to try and maybe delay the Runic forces from getting themselves in position. Now would have been a good time, I think, for the Mithlond units to have moved forward under vision and to pressure these units here. Although, of course, that's only a drop in the bucket. Rune still has all of these reserves, so maybe it's better that they hold their positions for the time being and stay out of range of those crossbow units that Rune is so famous for. But let's pop back over to the other side. I know you guys want to see what's happening here. Heavy Goblin infantry overwhelming this first line of Eastmark spearmen. This is really turning out a lot like the Battle of Five Armies. You know how in the books it was Dale, but in this case it's Rohan throws a small number of troops under the bus in order to lure them into the valley. Countercharge here from Dale, who is fully on the offensive. Earls of Dale getting a piece of the looks like the Hawacha crew. And now the Nurad footmen moving in there, and it is just chaos. Look at this. This is what Reforged is all about. Massive battles, massive team battles with your friends. Absolute glorious sight here as the heavily armored Dalian elite press forward against the Nurad units. Oh, we can already see that Mangonel beginning to open up. Get a nice piece of the Rittermark Axemen. Seems like they're actually being focused down by range units pretty well generally, although they might just be going after some of these Rittermark archers in the back that are across their lines with them. And Rittermark Axemen are just kind of collateral damage. Goblins still charging forward. Rittermark spearmen have been brought to bear. A thin green line is all that stands between the goblins and the heart of the Rohirrim army. What do we got over here? A small band of goblins supported by the Bolgs champions have come around the back of the good team position. Got some heavy goblin spears here, along with some heavy goblin infantry, and of course some snow trolls looking to pressure the flank of their enemy while their main forces press forward and keep their forces occupied. More goblin infantry coming down from the hills. Blackback Mountain berserkers, definitely a terrifying sight to see. Goblin King's bodyguard, I'm sure, going to join the fray quite shortly. Goblin archers up in good support positions, and a Mangonel, along with some trolls and some Snaga skirmishers, making their way onto the hill, and this is an ugly spot for them to be in. Let's go ahead and kick it up to full speed now. Ooh, look at this. I don't know what happened here. Maybe a Mangonel happened. Rittermark Axemen charging forward to support the Dalian line. And on the right, the good team is winning. This is a fight that I think they absolutely are going to have the advantage in. This is just one-to-one kind of a quality scrap. And even with the Khandish reinforcements being rushed in by UMAD Commander, it's going to be a slog through all those Barding Herd. And now with yet more reinforcements, heavy goblin infantry here in the center finding themselves, in a bad position, but the Mangonel coming in like a wrecking ball. Nicely chosen target there by Thorn. Or not by Thorn, by Tundra's Fox. Ooh, another big hit on the front lines here. Even the dismounted Earls of Dale don't like that. They're thinking about routing. Although their courage isn't going to fail them today. Of course, that is also a danger to some of the Khandish forces nearby, especially the nomadic infantry. Ooh, we do have some breaking here. Some of the Earls of Dale fleeing from the fight. The Barding Herd don't like that at all. They're going to regain their courage and hold, but the center is now broken. The evil forces have an opportunity. Oh, some more nasty hits from the Mangonel. This is just glorious. Fire arrows and throwing axes flying over into the evil ranks in response to those Mangonel shots. Just devastating these infantrymen here. Barding Herd, however, holding their courage. Riddermark Axemen really taking a beating here, but still not fleeing. Some of the Neurod units actually breaking in the face of the Misty Mountains assault. And still, Dale is not giving up. Riddermark Archers out of ammunition, charging into the fray to try and make up for some of the numbers lost to the Mangonel. Fire arrows coming in, each side trying to break the resolve of the other. Fiery projectiles flying overhead. Helminga's now out of ammunition, being thrown into the fray. Certain that the Axe Ladies are back there, tossing their payload into the Neurod units. Javelins being tossed in response by the Snaga skirmishers. It is just chaos. Butchery here on both sides. Oh, so nasty. But still the evil forces hold their resolve and they press forward. Goblin King's bodyguard now being committed to the fray. Some Goblin units coming down from the heights to engage the Riddermark Spearmen, who are holding their ground well. Let's see how the Goblin forces over on this side are faring. Not so well, but they are pulling much needed forces away from the front, which I think is all this attack was intended to do. Blackback Mountain Berserkers in there as well. They're going to overwhelm the Eastmark Spearmen. Some slave cavalry from UMAT supporting these battalions of Goblin heavy spearmen. Snow Trolls getting stuck in along with the Storm Guard of Khan against the First Marshal's bodyguard and the Sons of Eorl. Rohan is going to have to get out of there. Toot sweet. Now the Rohirrim cavalry is very much on the defensive. Meanwhile, the grind in the center continues on, and the good forces are starting to lose hope, I would say. Ooh, there goes somebody's general. Looks like the Rohirrim general. That is as disastrous as it could possibly be. A breakthrough here in the center. Barding Herd just don't have it in them any longer, and the Neurod Footmen are going to flood through that gap. Shield Maidens of Eowyn tossing one final shot of their axes into those Neurod Footmen. Oh, maybe one more shot. I'm sure they're going to charge in there soon, though. They certainly need to. They're the most obvious choice for this. And there they go, the Ladies of Eowyn. A shot from Mangonel. Ooh, as these forces begin to get surrounded, this is a mass rout waiting to happen. Hopefully Inksfit sees it and tosses his Shield Maidens of Eowyn in there as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, over here, the Barding Herd are starting to thin out as the evil forces press forward. The addition of the Goblin King bodyguard proving to be too much. A lot of routing going on over here. A lot of Eastmark Spearmen just don't have any fight in them. And this flanking movement from the Misty Mountains has been supremely successful. And a lot of this is thanks to some strong play here on the part of Tundra's Fox, using his Misty Mountain army very, very well. Getting his Mangonels into absolutely devastating positions where he's able to lay down enfilading fire. One pocket here in the center, still holding out. Right as the folds. I thought they were coming to the rescue, but actually they're just fleeing. Laketown River Patrol now out of ammunition. Shield Maidens of Eowyn pushing forward. The Kondish infantry is basically all but spent at this point, and left to their own devices, they would certainly lose this. Looks like some reinforcements here. Laketown Bowmen trying to get in there, hold the line with the Barding Herd, but they're being overwhelmed. Especially with this flanking movement here. The Goblin King bodyguard and the Blackback Mountain Berserkers, both fear-causing units. That's going to cause this pocket of resistance to just flee. Just melt under that pressure. Some reserves being brought up. A very desperate gamble here on the part of the Laketown units under Starling. But I think they're going to meet the same fate as these Bowmen and as these Barding Herd. They're going to get cut off by an influx here. Heavy Goblin Spearmen. Laketown Bowmen, for whatever reason, not feeling this fight. Already at the verge of wavering. I would have expected them, yeah, with these numbers here, I would have expected them to fight a little bit longer. Their morale is not that bad. Things are starting to kind of stabilize a little bit. These Laketown units will hopefully hold the line long enough for some more reinforcements to be brought up. Bardian Marksman now out of ammunition. Still got some pretty decent heavy-hitting units here. Blackshot Dragon Slayers, of course, still around. Inksfits skirmishing with what remains of the Rohirrim cavalry, trying to do their best. Oh, it's just a disaster over here. Meanwhile, over on this side, my Isengard forces have regrouped, and we have begun to circle in on the center line of the good forces. Meanwhile, over here in the township, the Mythlon forces have gone on the offensive, and it is going poorly for Rune indeed. That's a lot of pikes, something that they don't have an answer to. Humanite Commander has moved in with his Variag Warriors, trying to support this blob. Some more reinforcements coming in the form of the 4 Lindon Archers. This is a fight that I think the Elves of Lindon are absolutely going to win. However, over here, they're going to be a little bit more hard-pressed. Crossbow bolts coming in here, scything through these lightly armored units, most especially those pikes. So the biggest strength of the... sorry about that, guys. I thought I pulled out my own microphone. That would have been tragic indeed. Meanwhile, these Lindon forces really taking it on the chin. Some Noldoran Guard reserve battalions moving in. I got some Eastron Warriors here running down some of these Eastmark Spearmen, who I don't know how they got all the way over here. They must have fled all the way from that battle. And my Isengard forces moving in now, looking to support what remains of Rune and Numad's forces in the center. And we're going to deal with these troublesome elves as best as we can. There are still a fair amount of forces over here. Some reserve forces, some Girians, Paladins, some Rittermark Spearmen. It looks like they've come back from routing. Some of these Eastmark Spearmen, no longer fleeing. But now the jig is kind of up. Ooh, these Bardian marksmen fighting as hard as they can. They have great morale. They've got about 14 or so morale. They're not going to run anytime soon, but this is a lot for them to have to handle, especially with all the routing forces that are fleeing, all the missiles that are coming in against them. Over here, they're carving their way through the Snog of Skirmishers. But in the center, ooh, the Lake Town units still holding their ground. Some of them are fighting to the death. Others are still willing to hold their ground, even against the Blackback Mountain Berserkers. What do we got here? Sons of Eorl doing their best to try and even out this fight and keep these it's like a mix of Dale and Rohirrim forces, keep their hopes up, keep their spirits up, so they will continue to grind down these Kondish infantry. If they can win here with a significant amount of their forces, oh, it's going to be really significant. But unfortunately, these Lake Town units now breaking. A beautiful hit there from the Mangonel. I think with that flank lost, now these guys will be completely surrounded and set upon on all sides. And the Sons of Eorl here fighting against Variag Warriors. Variag Warriors are not spear units, but they do have a small bonus versus cavalry. That's a tough place for the Sons of Eorl to be. Well, we might see some breaking here as they get surrounded. Oh, and we are going to see the Sons of Eorl break. That is just tragic, and I think a lot of that came from the missile units that were firing into the rear of them. Blackshot Dragon Slayers. I don't know what they're shooting at. Probably at the Blackback Mountain Berserkers, I would guess. They're dying pretty quickly, so I'm pretty sure they're the cause of that. But it's just chaos here. Pockets of good team resistance still holding firm. Ooh, these Goblin Spears here really struggling against the Bardian Marksmen. I told you, they're not a bad infantry unit at all. Helminga's over here doing their best. Rittermark, a small number of Rittermark skirmishers. And looks like some First Marshal's bodyguard as well, trying to hold back the tide of Storm Guard and Slave Cavalry. And it seems like most of the Misty Mountain forces have passed elsewhere. Got some Warden's Velos Tyrion running forward, very, very nicely hidden in their white camouflage. Ingsvitz's Shield Maidens of Eowyn, a reserve company of them, moving forward to support the Lindon line, and things aren't quite so bleak for Lindon as they seemed just moments ago. I'll go ahead and kick it up to full speed here as my army moves in. We've still got a little bit of cavalry behind this, maybe a small unit of Dalish Earls, which is why I'm keeping some of these units of Guards of the Orthanc and things like that back, just because I don't want to get hit in the rear. I know that my pikes are going to have a great time against these Noldoran units, so I'm going to rush them in there as quickly as I can. Ooh, but we're going to come under some heavy fire early on by the Shield Maidens of Eowyn and Javelins. Got some Lake Town River Patrol back there, and they're just scything through my Uruk-hai. This is probably the heaviest fighting and the most devastating fighting for my Uruk-hai infantry that they've seen this entire battle. All of these javelins, all of these throwing weapons, it's just such a nightmare for them. Lindon moving in with some reinforcements. Mythlon Swordmasters, and things are looking pretty grim for us indeed. Still have a significant advantage so far in terms of percentage, but over here, if my army breaks, well, maybe they'll be able to circle back here and deal with the remnants of the Misty Mountains and Khand. This last final bastion of good team resistance has been cut through, and the remaining forces of Misty and Khand are going to move forward. Misty is probably looking the best in this kind of fight. But a lot of their forces are quite tired and they're basic goblins, so something to keep in mind. Bardian Marksman here, fighting hard. Over here, oh man. We have the Blackshot Dragon Slayers carving their way through these low-tier units in support of the Barding Marksmen. They're going to leave a trail of destruction wherever they go. There's still these pockets of resistance that are preventing the rest of the evil team forces from coming to our aid. Flagrim here doing their best against these Rohirrim units along with the pikes. Ooh, Girian Paladins being moved into position. Luckily, there is one small saving grace. I've still got a lot of my Snaga skirmishers left over, and they're in a great position to lay down some enfilading fire into the Noldoran Guard, who are now down to about half strength. And then after that, the target is going to be the Mithlon Swordmasters, who, from the rear, are very vulnerable to missiles. And I've still got enough numbers left to hold things down. I've actually committed my bodyguards to the Guards of Orthanc. They're in there with their +5 morale, even under all this fire. And with the presence of the General nearby as well. My Guards of the Orthanc are going to keep my Uruk-hai in the fight. You can see that they're all still eager. Maybe one of them, even the exhausted units, are still willing to fight this out. It's just an absolute grind so far. Laketown River Patrol now out of ammunition. Eastmark Spearmen waiting in reserve. Still have a fair amount of troops here to carve our way through. Wardens of Elostirion, this is where it gets real ugly. Enfilading fire from Rangers is just so devastating, and that's where a lot of this runic infantry is dying. Got some Eastbound Crossbowmen now out of ammunition moving forward. Rune still has some options, however. The good team assault on this end has gone swimmingly for them. Rune is moving up with some reserve battalions here. Got some Gamp Rim, but this is the real game changer right here. They still have their Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen. Maximus has very wisely held on to them for so long, and this is the result. Enfilading fire from those AP and body-piercing crossbow bolts. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of those Mithlon units get side down very, very quickly, and the breaking is going to happen nearly immediately. This is just a catastrophic loss for them. See a lot of their forces now routing, and the Misty Mountains and Khand have finally arrived on scene. I think the Blackshot Dragon Slayer is still over here. Eager to fight, it says victory is certain for them. Look at them, they're just making a wall of dead goblins around them. Absolutely, dare I say it, epic. Devastating those poor goblins there. Those Blackshot Dragon Slayers are absolute beasts in combat. This wing here has started to really run out of steam, so I'm going to throw in my Snaga skirmishers now out of ammunition. Still have a small company back here, putting a little bit of pressure into, I believe, the Girian's Paladins. Oh, the Mangonel! Mangonel firing into our forces. A lot of archers and things like that shooting in here as well. I think there's some crossbowmen in the back. And the Laketown units will not be able to stand up to that assault. Even the Noldoran Guard, down to a meager 9 men at this point. Not having fun. Girian's Paladins really taking it on the chin there from some armor-piercing projectiles. And now the forces of Khand and Misty Mountains coming in from the rear. I think that's the Dalian General right there, hacked down by one of the Uruk-hai archers. Shieldbanes of Eowyn getting a nice rear charge, but unfortunately with my Guards of the Orthanc, they are not going anywhere, my Uruk-hai pikes and infantry. Maybe one more glory. Yeah, the Hwacha now opening up. Absolute disregard for the lives of their allies, and it is beautiful to see. This is the kind of teamwork I can really get behind. More and more damage being done to the few elite units here willing to stand against the supreme forces of Sauron. An ultimate count is going to be 81 to 95. Surround the Girian's Paladins here. I believe that they are locked morale, so they're not going to go anywhere. Let's see what the Dragon Slayers are still up to. Still fighting, however. This is where the real action is. Very Bowman fearlessly charging into the rear of the Dragon Slayers. Look at the damage they have done here. Just absolutely massacring these units. We'll pop back on over this way. More fire coming in from the artillery pieces of both Khand and the Misty Mountains. Turned out that quadruple artillery combo was exactly what they needed to win that fight. If it came down to infantry alone, I don't think they would have been able to do it. I think the good team would have won a resounding victory, but they used their resources well, used the strengths of their factions to their utmost, and they were able to pry victory from the iron jaws of defeat. Now it's down to the Dragon Slayers. The last ones here. Oh man, they're really giving a good showing today. I think they're going to end up with like 600 kills or something. Starling was very, very happy about his Dragon Slayers, let me tell you. And I think they got about 636 kills all told when all was said and done. However, now the overwhelming numbers are starting to take their toll, and some quality being thrown into the mix with the Blackback Mountain Berserkers and their AP. Goblin King's Bodyguard in there as well. And the Dragon Slayers are just not going to be able to hold the line any longer. Kick it up to 2 times speed. And that is going to be all she wrote for the forces of good. Let's go ahead, take a quick look around the battlefield here. Just look at the absolute carnage. See that flanking movement. Really great play on the part of Tundra's Fox. I think he really came through for his team there. UMAC Commander also did very, very well with his Hwacha. You can see a lot of dead infantry around here. Are just kind of spaced out in that telltale Hwacha wreckage sort of way. Maximus really came through for me on my end with the addition of his Loc Flag Rim. He saved my bacon, took out that massive force from Lindon, which would have carved its way through most of his infantry, and I was able to come out of it with a fair amount of my own troops still remaining, pressure their flank, and ultimately we pulled out a really solid victory here due to teamwork. It was beautiful. There goes the Dragon Slayers. One last look, and that's going to be the end of the battle. Take a look at the casualties. Champions of the White Hand doing very well for themselves. Most of my army did pretty well. Some of my Uruk-hai archers didn't do so great, but I wasn't really expecting them to. They were just kind of there so that I had some archers. I wasn't able to use them against the cavalry the way that I wanted them to. So one of my Snaga skirmishers with 102 kills. Damn fine. 43 on the other one. It's okay. I think that's the unit that had they got caught up with some cavalry early on and then routed, and they came back. Isengard Ballista, 101 kills on it. Not bad for a piece of siege equipment. Uruk-hai Pikemen doing well as well. And there you have it. One of the first games of our Winter Invitational Tournament. This one is going to be a crushing evil victory. Because of the rules of the tournament, which I will just briefly explain, for every force that still has men remaining on the field that is not completely annihilated, routing units, of course, don't count. You get 1 point towards your overall count, which is the Spoils of War. The first team to get to 40 is the one that wins. I believe currently it's fairly close, with Good having a decent lead, about 3, I think, which can turn around in a second. But this battle basically evened the score. It went from 5-0 to 4-5. Damn fine victory. Hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I did playing it, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.